Today I'll be presenting our CG&A paper, Finding Their Data Voice, Practices and Challenges of Dashboard Users. I'm Melanie Tory, and this is joint work with my colleagues Lynn Bartram, Brittany Fiore-Gartland, and Anna Crisan. Dashboards are a ubiquitous means of data communication within organizations, and yet as visualization designers and researchers, we have little understanding of dashboard users and the data practices that they employ in their everyday work. How then can we be sure that we're designing our tools in a way that is effective to meet their needs? Dashboard users are a vast and diverse group of visualization users who need to engage with data periodically throughout their work, but who do not identify as data professionals like professional analysts or data scientists. They typically use dashboards or data reports as their primary portal to data in the way they use data throughout their various work practices. These dashboard users are underrepresented and poorly understood in visualization research, and therefore we set out to conduct an interview study to better understand this population. Our goal was to understand the work practices and challenges of dashboard users and to identify ultimately opportunities for better tool support to meet their needs. We conducted 20 one-hour interviews in a semi-structured way, and these were artifact-centered. So for each of the interviews, we asked the participant to choose one artifact, either typically a dashboard, but it could have been some other data artifact, and to talk us through the use of that artifact in practice. Our interviews included 13 dashboard users and 7 analysts who produced dashboards in support of dashboard users. The results of our interviews produced a rich corpus of data around how people are using dashboards in practice. We use this data to characterize the work that dashboard users do with dashboards as data conversations, where they're working in conversation both with their data, like asking and answering questions of their data to get answers, but also conversations that kind of go through or around their data, where they're conversing with other people and exchanging information, the dashboard as a medium. We also characterize the goals and tasks that dashboard users want to do with dashboards and the strategies that they employed when their work practices met a kind of breakdown where they couldn't complete their current goal or task within the current tool, i.e. a dashboard. So let's look at a couple examples of the people who we talked to in our interviews, and all of these names are pseudonyms. One interesting participant was Dustin. Dustin is a fitness center manager at a large aerospace company. Within the company, any employee can be a member of the fitness center, but they do have to sign up and pay a small monthly fee. So it's not that every employee is automatically part of the fitness center. Dustin, as the manager, therefore, is really interested in monitoring membership numbers over time. This allows him to sort of forecast future membership, predict membership fee income that will be coming in, and understand then, what kinds of decisions he could make about spending that fee income on things like new equipment. Dustin knows, for example, that at the beginning of the year, there are some New Year's resolutions. People are going to be more excited to get engaged in fitness and membership numbers will spike. And then over time, after a few months, people's interest starts to wane and some members will drop out. So Dustin likes to use this knowledge that he has along with his membership numbers to conduct some sort of what if analysis. What if my numbers go up 10% at this time and drop later? How much fee income will I have? And after doing that kind of analysis and looking at the current numbers, he produces a monthly report for his manager to articulate where they're at today and what he envisions could be done. Another interesting user in our study was Miguel. Miguel is an executive at a large company, particularly in talent acquisition. Miguel is interested in tracking diversity and inclusion data around his employees. He likes to bring his dashboards into meetings on his mobile phone and actively use the dashboard within the meeting to slice and dice the data and answer questions and discuss things with his team. He shares the mobile dashboard from his phone to a projector and uses this as a way of telling stories about the data. For Miguel, it's not just about the numbers. It's all about what kind of story he can tell the business about why we are where we are, where we're going, and what we need to change. So we met many people like Miguel and Dustin, and we listened to their stories. And one of the key insights that we found were that dashboards simply weren't enough. One example comes from Mandy, who is a marketing manager at a telecom company. Mandy was looking at a dashboard, something like this one, that showed a moment in time snapshot of sales numbers. Mandy's challenge was that she wanted to compare sales numbers from last month, say February versus January, but the dashboard was fixed in time and showed only that moment in time snapshot. That meant that for Mandy to actually compare time now versus last month, she had to go through an awkward series of steps. Mandy would set the filters to the current month, write down the numbers in her notebook, change the filter to last month, write down last month's numbers, and then get out her calculator and calculate the difference. That seems like an awkward workflow. Surely we can do better. Moreover, once Mandy had completed that calculation, she wanted to share that information with her manager and with her team through a presentation. That meant doing more than just taking a snapshot of the dashboard and putting it into the presentation, because for her, things that were rolling up to executives needed to be at a much lower level of detail. Only the big picture numbers, not all of the details that she looks at when she's in her dashboard, which is the source of her data. She wants the 2 or 3 bullet points that curate her message taken from the data, not the raw data itself. Another example comes from Dustin, the fitness center manager. Dustin got his data from a dashboard, but ultimately did a ton of work in a spreadsheet, because what he could do was take those numbers and manipulate them. He said that in Excel, he can do things like put in formulas, explore what if scenarios, envision the future, change the base number, and see what happens. So what we saw through all these stories were that the goals of dashboard users were quite varied. As expected, dashboard users need to access data. That's what a dashboard is ultimately envisioned as. But they were doing way more than that. They were managing their data, enriching their data with other data, or with predictions and new formulas. They were sometimes reshaping their data in order to create new views that they could then put into other curated documents. And ultimately, curating those other documents and presentations was for the purpose of sharing. So they needed to construct new artifacts based on that data to share with others. Sadly, dashboards were really only good at supporting that first point, getting at the data in the first place. A typical work process for many of these dashboard users might look like this. You start with your dashboard. That's your source of the data. Ultimately, you might want to create a curated report to distribute to your management or to your team. To do so, you would maybe take some screenshots out of the dashboard and put them into a new artifact. But that wasn't enough, you might also need to dump some data out of the dashboard into, say, a spreadsheet, possibly even add some additional data that wasn't in the dashboard but came from another source. Use that data to curate some new charts, perhaps at a different level of detail or showing some variant of the information, and put those into your curated report along with some narrative explaining what is going on. And that's the curated, valuable artifact that you can then distribute to your team. One of the interesting observations that we saw in support of this kind of workflow is the data dump dashboard. We saw actually quite a number of these data dump dashboards, and analysts often apologized for them. For example, one analyst told us created some really ugly Tableau reports just because dashboard users can't get the data they want. So they use Tableau as a cross-tab generator, and this is all a sort of abuse of Tableau in some ways. These data dump dashboards tended to look like big tables of numbers with some filters on top. The idea was that this would allow a dashboard user to get at information in a database without having to write SQL queries and with no risk that they would somehow pull the wrong subset of data, but that they could do some filtering and querying to sort of subset the data into the part that was relevant for them and then dump it out for use in a spreadsheet. All of this, of course, represents a bunch of really awkward, kludgy workflows that are maybe not ultimately what we would envision as a seamless experience. And as a result, dashboard users were often encountering breakdowns where they got to a certain point in their dashboard and then simply couldn't do more. At that point, we started to observe the strategies that dashboard users would employ when hitting these breakdowns. Across the top of the chart here, we see the different dashboard tasks that users were doing, from managing data to enriching their data, shaping their data, and so on. And down the y-axis, we see the different strategies that we characterized of what users would do when they hit these breakdowns that they couldn't complete their task in their dashboard. One thing to notice is that the top three strategies were, first off, switching tools, for example, dumping the data out into a spreadsheet or moving into another type of document like a Word document or a presentation. They would also employ strange, awkward manual workarounds like writing data in a notebook and pulling out a calculator, and quite often they would simply give up. So all of this represents very seamful experiences where users were not able to accomplish their tasks in a seamless way. Instead of being smooth and continuous in the way that we would hope, these users encountered difficulties, kludgy workarounds, and awkward, often painful workflows. So all of this leads me to the opportunity that comes out of this research. The opportunity here is to meet dashboard users where they are, to redesign our tools to match the workflows that come naturally to them, rather than expecting dashboard users to adapt to existing tools or to become highly proficient data analysts, which they're not. One way to do that is to think about flexibility in dashboards. If we could take a fixed dashboard and transform it into a curated data experience, it would be able to handle a lot of the unanticipated use cases that a dashboard builder might not have curated already into the dashboard. This can include simple things like enabling controls for the end user to slice and dice the data within the dashboard. That can go beyond just filters to enable users to do more content customization. For example, hiding and showing views, swapping out data attributes in charts for different attributes that were previously hidden, or maybe even adding some of their own data or their own charts into a dashboard. We could also go further to integrate smart analytics that might help users to find interesting content, notify them of interesting events, and so on. We can also support the transition from analysis to sharing. This could start with those flexible, curated data experiences so that users can get the content right. We could also enable them to reformat the dashboard, change chart types, change colors, titles, and legends, enabling them to curate the look and feel to be suitable for the reports and presentations that they ultimately might need to produce. Adding narrative is key to storytelling. People like Miguel needed to tell a story around the data, explain it, add contextual information, and narrative can allow them to do that. And we can play nice by enabling easier transitions from visualization tools into other types of tools like presentations and documents. All of this can allow a dashboard user to more easily create that kind of curated report to share with others. Another idea may be to adopt some of the materiality of spreadsheets. It was universal that our dashboard users were working in spreadsheets, and part of the value of these spreadsheets is that they're so easy to use. If you think about it, spreadsheets allow you to work at a very intuitive level. If you have a visualization tool and you need to create a calculation within it, you're going to need to think at the level of it, the abstraction level of a column header. The total is year one plus year two. But in a spreadsheet, you can forego that abstraction altogether and simply say this plus this equals that. Point and click individual cells. And working with that cell level data is more tangible and easier for less experienced people to learn, grasp, and be comfortable with. Perhaps we might imagine how some of that tangibility could be adopted into visualization tools. So in conclusion, we spoke to many dashboard users and found that they're engaging in really rich conversations with, through, and around their data. They're doing really complicated things. They are asking and answering interesting questions. They are enriching their data. They're curating new artifacts and they're sharing them. And yet, they're employing improvised and awkward workflows because the tools that they have are poorly supporting their needs. Our vision is that as a community, we could start to design visualization tools that augment these dashboard users' work practices, meet them where they are, and don't expect the dashboard users to adapt to the tools. Thank you.